remote work in Agile. First of all, I want to extend all my hopes and wishes that every single one of you is safe and healthy and will
remain like that,
and will keep remaining like that. These are a few difficult times. We won't touch on this too much because there's a lot of discussion around these things. We just want to extend our wishes and then focus on the topic at hand, which hopefully will also bring you some welcome change of scenery and of discussion. So remote work in Agile. First of all, a bit of background. We are both Agile coaches. We also work in a company in Mozaic Works where we had, I think it was 7 months or so.
Yeah, 9 months.
Or 9 months when we didn't have an office. We worked completely remote. And this was a decision of the team. We wanted to try this out, so it wasn't commercial decision. It was just we wanted to try this out. We wanted to see how it would work. So that's we have a lot of experience doing this, and we also have experience working with people who
and implementing in some organizations, big, small, medium, this type of work, the remote work, where it proved to be extremely useful. And I think especially in software development, but not necessarily in any type of knowledge work, if you have your knowledge spread around, is better than having it in an office, and you're more flexible and everybody's happier because you might have things to do home or families or a sick child or something like that, and sometimes you just need to stay home.
Yes. And so I'm thinking about starting from, since we are discussing about an Agile context, I'd like to start from a few elements from the Agile Manifesto that discuss and that seem to come in contradiction with remote work, right?
Yeah.
So the first one that comes to mind is the sixth principle behind the Agile Manifesto that says the most efficient and effective way to communicate in a development team is face-to-face.
Yeah, and this is true.
And this is true. However, what we learned by working with teams that are distributed is that it's not as important to have face-to-face. We can translate this principle to be high bandwidth communication. So what this means is it's very tempting for a programmer to write everything on a chat.
But that's not very effective.
But whenever you are doing your daily scrum, your retrospective, your ceremonies, your planning, things like this, it's not effective. It's worse than, it's very easy to get distracted. You won't pay a lot of attention to it. And because you won't pay a lot of attention, you won't be able to contribute, and things will go bad because your planning is not good, your retrospective doesn't lead to any insights, you're just basically wasting time. So only for these things, it's much more recommended to have video. So in general, video is better than just audio, is better than just text.
It's more bandwidth. We communicate a lot visually, so it's not that hearing the voice or what the other is saying. It's also important to see the other person's face, body language, and sometimes this is very important, especially if you deal with people who are more like introverts, and this is why video is very good. And not any type of video, HD video is very important. A bit of care how the light is in the room, because sometimes I go into these conference rooms and the light is from the back and you just see a sun and you don't see the others. So these things are very important. And also with the sound, so having good microphones, this is typically neglected even in conferences where you have more people and the sound is awful. If you stay more than 5 minutes in a conference like that with bad sound, nobody will pay attention anymore.
Yes. So that's the first piece of advice. Whenever you're doing your ceremonies, use video. This doesn't mean that you should have video open all day, right?
Yeah.
But it could be useful to have some kind of video connection open so that you can jump in and out. So for example, if you need to ask somebody something specific, it should be fairly easy to call that person or just ask, okay, could we have a quick video chat?
And we call that remote peer. So you have someone remote who takes care of you. This is very useful when you have a team divided into more or less equal. It doesn't work when you have a team distributed, like everybody's home. But when you have, I don't know, a team in a city and a team in other, and part of a team in another city, then it works really well. Otherwise, I think everybody needs to do that. So you need even more flexibility than having just one peer. You need to have everybody to everybody as a peer. So you need these communication guidelines and these like rules that you put when you answer. Because if someone has an issue and you answer in one day, it's just bad.
Yeah, so one thing that we implemented back when we were in Mozaic Works doing this remote work, we had quite a clear schedule. So everybody I think the rule was that everybody should check the email twice a day. It was in the morning and in the afternoon, at least. You could do more, but typically twice a day for us was enough. We had some channels open, so we were able to reach each other. At that time it was Skype, but now you can use
probably Slack is more
Slack
like
or something else.
Things that people use now.
So in case you have something to share, something to ask, you can of course ask a question, as long as it's not urgent. If you have something urgent, if you are stuck, if you need to solve something and you need somebody's help, that's when you should be able to just write to them and say, okay, can we have a quick video call? Because then it's very helpful.
And we also discussed about having channels in a certain level of urgency. So if it's very urgent, just call someone. Use the phone and call them. It's not like, because it happened, right, with some of our colleagues. It was urgent. I texted you, but you didn't answer for half a day. So just call. It's a lot more important to have a call. If the other person doesn't want to answer, cannot answer, just won't. So that's something else.
And let me go back to the Agile Manifesto. Let's remember that one of the tenets of the Agile Manifesto is that individuals and interactions, we see them more valuable than processes and tools.
Yeah.
What happens when you are working remotely is that you need some tools, you need some more process. What we are discussing here is that you need some kind of clear process for communication, for example. So you need to know what are the rules. When can I communicate to somebody? When can I interrupt somebody? When can somebody else interrupt me? And these are things that you should negotiate as a team and figure them out. So it's not something that a manager should come and say, oh, from now on, starting at 11, everybody's available until 11:30. And no, try to find your own rules. That's how an Agile team works. And you still need the individuals and the interactions. It's still extremely important. However, you cannot do the same things that you did when you were working in the same office. You cannot go and grab coffee with somebody. You cannot not meet somebody by accident, but the water supply and ask them, a question and get a quick answer. So you are missing some of the opportunities. However, there is one thing that you could do, which is it's something that is done in Sweden a lot, which is called fika. So that's basically a team-wide, or in Sweden it used to be a company-wide coffee break. So there's a specific time in the day. I think in Sweden it's around 4,
yeah,
something,
5, yeah.
when you have this coffee break, and everybody has the coffee break at the same time. You have it in your calendar, you know that it will happen. And then if you are also working remotely, you know that that is the time when you can also have some social interactions with people, even though you are remote from them. So you can drink coffee remotely with somebody. So you just call a remote colleague and a random colleague
and have remote coffee. That can work.
Have remote coffee, and you discuss the same things you would discuss at a coffee break. So don't try to solve things. It's just try to figure out.
And as long as you have, I think, the good tools for conferencing that won't frustrate you with bad streaming, bad volume, noise, and so on, I think it will work almost as fine. It's not the same thing. It's a bit weird in the beginning, but it will work.
Yes. Okay. What else? I also wrote down Principle 8 from Agile Manifesto, which is that we should remember to do sustainable pace.
Yeah.
And the reason is, one thing that happens when you are working remotely is because you don't have all the interruptions from your colleagues. Let's call them interruptions. You don't feel obligated to engage in any social interactions. You don't feel obligated to do any of these things. So you tend to sit down, start working, and keep on working until you realize that you're very tired.
Yeah, so it happened to me starting at 9 a.m. and then looking at the window and say, oh, it's kind of dark, and it's 5 p.m. So don't do that. Try to look at the time. Try maybe to put clock alarms and take a break at least every 90 minutes, if not even more than that, because otherwise it will be you'll be extremely tired.
Yes, so it's really useful to set up a schedule for yourself, and this is now on a personal level. It does, of course, it has to match somehow with the rules you set as a team for communication. Like if you have fika at 4, you know you need to stop at 4. If you have some half an hour a day, let's say, when you answer each other's questions and you know you should be available, you should plan that as work time. So things like this. But around these constraints, you should structure your day in a way that includes not only work, but includes breaks. And if you can, it should also include the walk. So I know there's a lot of issues now with the with the virus and so on, but still in most places it's okay to take a walk as long as you stay away from people as much as possible. And
or walk in your apartment or in your house or in your garden, but get out. Stop doing what you do. Do something. I don't know. If you have some sports equipment, use it. Anything like that. It's very important for you to be effective, for you not to feel extremely tired, to take these kinds of breaks.
And to add to this, there's one psychological trick that you can use, because when you sit down, usually in your home, you tend to get very much into the work once again. And if you get up and just try to move around the same room, the problem is that psychologically you are still linked to the problems. So there's one neat trick, which is if you get out of a room, the moment you get out of a room and close the door, your brain basically changes gears, switches into another mode of operation. So that's one simple way which you can use. Just get out of a door, move into another room, and this will allow your brain to disconnect for a moment from what you are doing. And this is very important because having your brain relax for a while will allow you to actually be more effective afterwards.
And have better ideas.
Have better ideas, come with new And you mentioned exercise.
Yeah.
I think exercise is very important, especially when you're doing remote work. Now the gyms will probably close.
Yeah.
Um, it's time to look at some options for doing exercise at home. I've been doing this for a few years. It's not that hard. You can buy some dumbbells and some
Yeah.
things and just do some exercise.
Or just use water bottles. That could work if you don't.
Yeah.
You cannot buy anything now.
Yes. So, and there are also exercises that you can do just by using your body, basically your natural body weight. Search for it. There's a really neat application from Nike, which gives you a lot of options for exercise, and I'm sure you can find other mobile apps that do the same. If you have a large TV, you can also screencast it to the TV, and then it's fairly easy to do some exercise. Even though you are in your home, you cannot get out. It's still important because your brain needs the oxygen.
Yeah, and we really need to move. I mean, our bodies need to move. It's not like we're made to stay in a chair for 8 hours. Another thing I wanted to mention is that for many people who start working remote, it's a problem of schedule because they feel like it's very difficult to separate their day work, like I don't know, their family or their chores from the work you do. So if you have like if you go to an office, you feel like at the office I will work, and at home I'll go and relax. But now if I start working from home, it's very difficult for many people. I heard that I talked to many people that said they don't know how to put this line down in between work and home. And indeed, this is a difficult thing to do in the beginning. You cannot say when you're working and when you're not. This trick with the room might work. It's not necessarily very strong. So you need to adapt. You need to put your breaks, like saying 9 a.m. I'll start working, at 5 I'll stop, whatever happens. And we have a saying at Mosaic Works that work never stops, it just takes a break. So take a break until next day, and because work will never stop, you'll always have a lot of things to do.
Yes, and to add to this, it's also becoming more complicated, especially if every member of your family is working the same.
Yeah. you need a room for everybody.
Yeah, so you
being,
probably, I mean, if you are lucky, you have enough space for everybody to work in their own room. If not, you'll need a way to separate and to be very clear of what is your work time, what is your family time, what is the leisure time, right? And make this clear because otherwise you might end up, I'm trying to work, but my wife is still telling me stories about things, and I'm just
I need to stay there.
I need to stay there, and so on. So just to avoid these issues, is best to negotiate. Once again, communication. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Negotiate some ground rules. So another common thing that happens is that, especially if you're working in the same room or if your walls are thin,
you hear each other.
You hear each other, and especially when you need to communicate a lot with your teams, this can become a nuisance. What I do is I have very good headset that cancels sounds, and then
like in an open space, right?
Yeah, like in an open space. So get your sound canceling headset. Once again, probably a good idea to order it if you can, if you don't have it.
I think there's still a thing about working from home with children. Typically, for them, it's very difficult to understand that if you're home, you're working. If you
Yes.
haven't done that before, I think this is the hardest part, probably. Or if you have parents or people who never done this and who think office is work and home is home and family. So I think this is the most difficult issue to tackle. I don't have really solutions other than just repeat,
Yeah,
negotiate.
just repeat.
It's
I'm
not-
I'm at the office.
Yes.
So this is one sentence that I noticed works wonders. Is even when people don't understand why you are working. So I was, for example, on a beach in Greece, and I was doing some work, and we had some family there, and they couldn't understand, But the phrase that makes them understand is, "I'm at the office now." So that's one thing that might help. But really, I don't have any clear solutions for children. It's just you need to explain them
Yeah.
as much as you can that I'm at the office. I know you see me here, but I'm at the office. Maybe change it into a game. It's
It could work.
am I at the office now or right. So what else? Focus is a pretty important thing. One thing that I noticed is it's very useful to focus for a limited period of time, as we were discussing, about 90 minutes, maybe up to 2 hours, but no longer than that. So, because once again, your brain gets tired after a while. And during this period, you should be able to focus. So that's when you should be able to try to remove any problems from around you. So have the noise canceling headset, talk to your children, make sure they understand you are at office, things like that. But then also you need to feel free to take the break and understand that yes, it's okay for me to take a break. This is a psychological hurdle because you sometimes find yourself in your own cozy home, and you tend to work and work and work and work and forget about you. So remember that. How do you facilitate meetings remotely?
This is a bit more tricky. First of all, you need to know very well how to facilitate meetings in person. And then when you do this remote, it depends a lot on the type of meeting. If you have a meeting where you just talk, I think it's fairly easy. You just need to moderate. I think this is the simplest one. But when you need to have something presented, or you need to look at some code, or you need to get information from people, you need to have tools. So this preparation with tools is a lot more important than if you were at an office where you have already a whiteboard or some paper or some post-its. So you need to supplement all these with remote tools, and there are plenty of remote tools that can help you with that. So think about the same activity that you need to do in a meeting. If it's about getting people's opinion, you might want to have a tool that where people can write. There's like this whiteboard. Well, there are more remote whiteboard tools where people can start writing their texts. So this works fairly well. This works in a retrospective or in a meeting where you need to brainstorm. And if you want to present something, again, you need to use other tools. I think most of the tools today that do conferencing can also share screen, so they can work. though most of them I think don't have that good quality for remote sharing of screens. If you want higher quality, go with something that's a bit better, and typically you need to pay for them. I've been using extensively Zoom, which I think is one of the best that you can use at a fairly cheap price for the quality and the number of people that can join, with very good quality of image, of sound, and it's very easy to switch in between people who present. Because there's one thing of just having a Skype or a Google Hangout where you share the screen and just one person will do that, or having everybody around the table present something. And for that, Zoom is a lot more effective because it's very easy to move the projector cable from one to another. Otherwise, I think, as I mentioned, remote whiteboards are very useful, or tools like Trello, where everybody can write their opinions. And facilitation means that you are more structured in using these tools. So you again have more process than what you used to have. You need to understand what people can do and can't do, and because of that, if you want things to go well, start with a kind of a presentation, an intro, where you state the rules of this meeting. It's very important to say from the beginning, this is, I don't know, retrospective, we'll use this tool, this tool, this tool, make them and I hope you have them available. Of course, that means that you need to ask them upfront to install them. So like Zoom or like a whiteboard, to know how to use them. So give them some time. Don't stay there, everybody, to install stuff in a meeting. Never do that.
Yeah, so you should probably set up some tasks or something in your sprint planning so that you can install all the necessary tools, set them up, test them with each other before you actually go into meetings. Because otherwise you spend the first 10-15 minutes of meetings figuring out what doesn't work and why.
I think that's how it's become frustrating for people to work remote, when things don't work.
Yeah.
So if you facilitate everything well, so you ensure that tools work, people will start liking it. But if you start having problems with access, with VPNs, with tools that don't work, with bad sound, with bad video, then people will be frustrated and say this never works. So it's really a problem if you start having these ideas.
Yeah, but also we need to cut some slack. For the moment, unfortunately, some of the tools will probably get overwhelmed with the number of requests suddenly coming for remote connections and
maybe
collaboration.
Even the internet.
Maybe even the internet. So I would expect that there will be some issues with tools in the next few weeks or months, and you should always have a backup. I know it's not always in your control. Sometimes it's managers deciding what tools we use, what licenses we buy, and so on. But I would raise this as a risk to the managers who are responsible for the infrastructure and tell them, we should have a backup. Yes, we have Microsoft Teams or Google Hangouts or whatever, but we should also have a secondary channel that we can use safely when we need to. And of course, that adheres to security policies and whatever else is needed. But you need to have a backup. Otherwise, you'll probably end up getting frustrated, and I don't think anybody wants that.
And if you work in industries where security is important and personal data is essential, just try not to use other tools than the ones recommended by organization, because it did happen that organizations were fined for using tools that weren't accepted.
Yes, so it's a serious issue. You don't want to
Yeah.
don't necessarily mess with it. Go through the proper channels, but it should. Everybody should be aware that tools may fail. Okay. What else? Remote pair programming.
Yeah,
think
I've been doing that for the last 3 years or so. I have recorded, I don't know, something like 30 episodes of remote pair programming. I think it's still a pain to do remote pair programming. There are these tools that people have using for a while that are improving. There's one called Flowbit that's very nice. It behaves like you work on the same editor. There is
so. It's
FLOO bit.
Yes.
Bit, yes.
I posted it on chat.
This is nice, but though for me it didn't work in the beginning. But I heard that for teams that are using it, if they know some tricks on how to use it, it works really great. There are other tools like that. I think VS Code started being a very nice remote working tool. It's from Microsoft. It's not only C# or .NET, surprisingly.
And it's not only Windows anymore.
It's not only Windows anymore. And it really looks nice. I think it's promising. It's still not there. As I said, it's still painful, but you can try it out. If you're using .NET, for sure it will work great. If you use something else, try it out and see if it works for you. I think it's a better option than just screen sharing because you can work in the same IDE. There are others, but I think these are the ones that I like the most, and I think that can be used for big scale applications. Otherwise, I always use as a second option Zoom, where you can share your screen and have video and audio in the same time, and you can have more people looking at that, so you can do even stuff like remote mobbing or looking together at the code and do some performing kata. So it works really great at really good quality without lags.
Which reminds me that you shouldn't forget your coding practice.
Yes.
Outside of the normal work, you should also have some time for practicing other techniques like refactoring, unit testing, test-driven development, and so on. And it's always useful to do that with a pair or with a group of people. And this is where things like remote pair programming help a lot. And so this allows you to, test the tools, not in production, but test them for your practice session. See how they work, and then figure out how to use them for production. Unless you are familiar with them, then it's not that important.
Well, I guess the best tool for remote pairing is still Vim with Tmax.
Really?
But that's tough, right? You need to be a very good Vim user, but that's no lag. That's really very short messages, right? Because you just send the changes, and it's on an SSH tunnel. So
I never tried Vim remotely, but
yeah, with Tmax is just great, but you need to be a very good Vim user.
Okay, I'll try it out. That sounds interesting. All right. What else would be interesting?
Well, I think there were some prerequisites that we talked about. The things that people need to look at are, just a moment. So some prerequisites means that before you start working like that in a remote way, you need to set up some things. And we talk about these principles that you need to have a time, a date of a day when you start working, and the time of day when you have meetings. I think this is very useful, well, also when you are in an office, but otherwise it's very useful to think about this, to fragment your day like that in two big chunks. Otherwise it's very tiring to switch between video calls and work, and you don't get a lot of things done. Another principle is to be extremely transparent with all your activities. We say that when we do remote work, we need to over communicate, because it's very difficult for someone to know if you're at your desk at your office. If you were in an office space, they'll know, okay, he went to a coffee, he left for an appointment, he I don't know, he's going to make a coffee, he's preparing lunch, but when you start, not if you aren't there, then you need to start explaining this. So on a chat you will start sharing more things than you're used to, because people aren't there to see you.
Yeah, so it's useful, especially if you have like a team Slack channel or something similar. You can have a channel for kind of the transactional events during the day. Things like, okay, I'm on a 5 minutes break, or be back in 5 minutes, or away from keyboard, AFK, checking in, right? Or log in. I am now available. That's what login means. I have started my my workday. Maybe starting focus time. This could be an event that you communicate. Start focus time 45 minutes. I won't answer anything. I won't look at anything.
And you can even close your Slack. So if it's focus time, what I do, I close everything: email, Skype, Slack, whatever. That just focus on the thing. If someone will need urgently something, they will call me, and I think nobody will die if I don't answer on Slack for 45 minutes or 1 hour.
And as long as you know and you are aware that this happens, it's perfectly fine. It's also useful to say, I'm working on this task, I have finished this task.
Exactly.
I need a code review, I need help. I need, whenever you need something, shout it out on your chat.
Or even progress, like I've made good progress today on that. I made less progress than I would expect on that. I think we have more options, and I will tell you tomorrow at the daily, or things like that. In short, just state what you've done. Over communicate, that's very important.
Yeah. If you need to leave, you don't always need to share the reason why you need to leave your computer. You can just say,
it's a break.
I'll be away for a few moments or 5 minutes, or unknown. Maybe you don't know how long you'll be away. Just as long as when you go back to your keyboard, announce that, okay, I'm back.
Exactly.
And so on. So think about it in terms of events, basically. What you are doing is designing your communication using events between you and the other people. It's like microservices, only between people and not between components. One thing that's interesting is it would be useful for you to have some post-its, have some markers at home, and build yourself a physical board. Because you don't get too much interaction with other people while you are working remotely, just this feeling of building your own, task board. It can be very simple to do, doing done. just a piece of paper. It can be A4, it can be A3. Just put a piece of paper, try to do doing done, put some post-its on those, and move them when you are done with them. And even if you throw them away at the end of every day, and then redo them the next day after the daily, it's still a nice routine because it also allows you to physically see what you've done. And it gives you more satisfaction psychologically. And this is something that we want to have, because when you are remote from your colleagues, yes, I'm not as much a person. I prefer to work. When I work, I prefer to be farther away from people, but it's still very nice to be able, when you are done with something, to say, oh, I'm done with it. Hey, cool. It's done. And you are missing this when you are remote.
I think it's also useful for context switching, for your brain to say, now I will do this. So in order to stop, there's an issue when you didn't finish something. If you write it down, then your brain will help you be more relaxed, because you wrote down there where you are with a specific task. So you dump what was in your brain, and then you are more relaxed, rather than keeping everything in your head and saying, I need to continue that, maybe this, maybe this, maybe that. And this is extremely tiring. So that's why board, or sometimes I use a paper, just write things, or if I don't have any of these, I just use a text file on my computer, and I say, look, this is what I have done, this is what I can do. So it depends on your space, on what you can do, but it's extremely useful to be able to stop working and to make your brain stop working at the end of the day, at the end of the work day.
Yeah, and who knows, you can also, if you have children, they can also help you move the post-its.
Yes, hopefully in the good direction.
Okay, so these were a few tips. It's by no means something extensive or the end of conversation. I was hoping to see more questions here, but I don't see questions. It's also our first live stream, so I hope everything went fine. If you are interested in more content like this, we have another live stream scheduled for
Thursday afternoon European time, Eastern European time. It will be about microservices and design them.
Yes, about design principles used for microservices. We also are organizing now ITACAN conference, which will take place probably on this same tool.
Yeah, 7th of April.
So it will be an online conference, digital event, remote, however you want to say.
With more speakers, and where you'll be able to ask questions like you can here with this tool as well. So stay tuned, we'll give you more information in the next week.
And don't hesitate to ask us questions. You can find us on mozaicworks.com with a Z, so M-O-Z, mozaicworks.com. Contact us and ask us questions or suggest other topics for such live streams. It's quite a cool thing. I love doing these videos and streams. And also check out our YouTube channel, which has much more conversations with very interesting people.
Very diverse topics around technical stuff, working together, people, art.
Yes. So there's actually a good distraction. The video that's going out today is with David Schmide, who is a programmer and artist. So if you're looking for a distraction, that will be a very interesting conversation to listen to. Thank you all, and I hope to see you soon. We are here in the Mozaic Works studio. We'll be here for the foreseeable future. And remember to think, design, and work smart.